My parents chose my brother's wedding over my ICU bed. They paid for his honeymoon while I learned to walk again, never imagining that quiet truths and one unavoidable reckoning would shatter the perfect family image they protected. My name's Elliot. I'm 26. And this whole mess started 2 days before my brother's wedding. Matthias is the golden child of the family. He's 2 years older, straight A's growing up, football team captain, now working some corporate job that my parents brag about, like he invented the internet or something. Me, I was the kid who blended into the wallpaper. I did fine in school, worked through college, but no one ever introduced me as their pride and joy. And to be fair, I didn't really care. Matthias was the star, and I was used to it. It only got weird when my family made everything about him, even when it had nothing to do with him. Like this wedding, my mom had been planning it like it was the royal wedding part 2. Dad basically turned into her assistant. And me, I was supposed to be the best man, but I learned later that one of Matthias's college friends stepped in as best man. Money was tight for me at the time. Student loans, rent, you name it. So, when a buddy told me about this temporary construction gig that paid decent, I jumped on it. My plan was simple. Work 2 weeks, make enough to cover the tux rental, wedding gift, and maybe have some leftover for bills. Nothing crazy, just a short job to help out a bit. The site was on the edge of town. Small commercial project. Nothing that looked sketchy from the outside. A few metal frames, some scaffolding, piles of drywall stacked around. I wasn't new to labor jobs. I'd done warehouse work before, but this was my first time on a site with heights involved. The foreman did a safety talk, handed out helmets, pointed at the harnesses, told us to stay clipped in. Standard stuff. It was hot that day, the kind of heat where metal burns your hands if you forget your gloves for 2 seconds. We were working on the second level of scaffolding, bolting some metal sheets into place. I remember the smell of the dust and the sharp metallic sound every time someone dropped a wrench on the frame. It happened. I heard this loud ping like metal snapping. The plank under my feet jerked hard, then dropped on one side. My stomach flipped before my brain caught up. I grabbed at the rail, but it swung loose with me. Whole thing collapsed like someone yanked the rug out. I don't remember the fall clearly, just flashes, sky, ground, someone yelling my name. Then pain slammed through my back like I'd landed on a bed of bricks. Next thing I know, there's chaos. Hard hats running around. Someone shouting for an ambulance. My legs felt wrong. Not like a sleep wrong, just wrong. Breathing hurt. I kept trying to shift to see my legs, but they told me to stay still. At the hospital, everything blurred together. Bright lights, people in scrubs moving fast. Someone asking if I had family to call. I mumbled my parents' number. A nurse wrote it down and disappeared. The doctor leaned over me at one point and said, "You've got spinal fractures and a broken femur. We need to operate now." I nodded because what else do you say? That's when my best friend Jackson showed up. He looked pale as hell, kept asking the staff if I was going to be okay. They handed him a clipboard because my parents weren't there yet. It was admission and emergency contact paperwork, so he filled it out. I drifted in and out while they wheeled me somewhere. Right before I went under, I heard one of the nurses on the phone saying, "Yes, ma'am, he's about to go into surgery. Yes, I understand," but then she hung up and muttered,
"She said they can't make it. Rehearsal dinner tonight."
I thought I misheard. I had to have misheard. When I woke up after surgery, I was in the ICU, monitors chirping, a blood pressure cuff biting my arm. Jackson was in the chair by the bed, looking wrecked. He told me they put rods in my leg, screws in my spine, and that my parents knew but were still at the rehearsal. He'd called them himself. "They said they'll come tomorrow," he muttered, shaking his head. I didn't even know what to say. The pain meds made everything foggy. But I remember feeling this weird mix of anger and disbelief, like, yeah, it was Matthias's big weekend, but I was in a hospital bed full of metal rods. Tomorrow, really? The nurses came in and out checking vitals, telling me not to move too much. At some point, a guy from the site dropped by to see how I was doing. He said the scaffolding supplier was sending reps to check the wreckage, that OSHA might get involved. I barely processed it. I never heard anything after that. If there was an investigation, it happened without me. When I woke up again, it felt like my spine had been replaced with fire. The lights above me were harsh. The room smelled like antiseptic, and for a second, I couldn't even tell if it was day or night. My throat was dry, and my voice cracked when I tried to speak. "Hey, easy," Jackson said from the chair next to my bed. He looked rough, like he hadn't slept. "You've been out for hours." Surgery went okay, but it was bad, Elliot. Real bad. I asked what time it was. He told me it was noon. Wedding rehearsal had been last night. The actual wedding was tomorrow. Did my parents come? I asked. He hesitated. No, they said they're busy.
Busy? I repeated.
Yeah, rehearsal dinner, he muttered, rubbing his eyes. I called them this morning. They said they'll come by after the wedding's over. I didn't answer right away because I honestly didn't know what to say. My back throbbed like someone had stuck a car jack under my ribs. A nurse came in with a clipboard, checked the monitors, then asked if I wanted to try sitting up. I tried. My body protested immediately. My ribs felt like they were caving in, my leg felt wrong, and my head spun so hard I almost blacked out. The nurse told me to take deep breaths, like that was going to fix anything. After she left, Jackson told me he tried calling Matthias too. Straight to voicemail, no call back. A little later, Mom texted me that she'd already told him I was in the ICU and they'd come after the wedding. The doctor showed up mid-afternoon. He explained the damage like he was reading off a grocery list. Broken femur, 3 spinal fractures, 2 cracked ribs, and a long recovery ahead. Physical therapy, months of it, maybe a year before things felt close to normal. He said it like normal was even still an option. And through all this, my family was out having wine and giving speeches like nothing had happened. Later, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. Jackson put it on speaker. "Hi, Elliot," she said, way too cheerful. "We can't be in 2 places at once, you know. The wedding's tomorrow, so much to do. We'll check in after things settle, hope you're resting." That was it. Like she was leaving a note about running late for dinner, not her son being in the ICU. I stared at the phone. Jackson swore under his breath. An hour later, my cousin texted me, "Hey, are you coming to the reception tomorrow?" I wrote back, "Can't. In the hospital, surgery yesterday." She answered, "Wait, what? Since when?" I told her it was 2 days ago. She didn't text back after that. The next morning, wedding day, I was still in the hospital bed, barely able to move. Jackson left around noon to shower and grab food. While he was gone, I watched other patients get visitors, husbands, wives, kids. People bringing flowers, cards, balloons. No one from my family came for me. Around 3 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Mom again, same tone. "Hey honey, just wanted to say we're at the wedding now. It's beautiful. You'd love it. Big day today. We'll swing by when things quiet down. Hope you're feeling better." She said it like I was homesick with a cold, not stuck in a hospital bed with metal rods in my spine. I listened twice, saved it, then put the phone down. From Facebook posts, I got the highlights. Matthias in his tux, his bride glowing, my parents smiling like they were hosting a royal event. Caption after caption about family first and best day ever. I stopped scrolling after 10 minutes. That evening, Jackson came back with takeout. He tried talking about sports, random memes, whatever he could think of to fill the silence. I picked at my food, mostly pushing it around. "You want me to call them again?" he asked finally. "No point," I said. "They made their choice." That night, I couldn't sleep. Machines beeped. Someone down the hall kept coughing. Nurses laughed about something at the desk. By the time the wedding weekend ended, I had a couple of messages, 0 visits, and a very clear picture of where I stood in my family's list of priorities. The Monday after, a nurse asked if my parents were coming soon to help plan my discharge. I told her not to hold her breath because at that point, I already knew. The hospital days blurred together after the wedding weekend. Every morning, some doctor or nurse came in with a clipboard, asking if I had family who could take me in once I was released. I kept giving the same answer. "I'll figure it out." Meanwhile, Jackson's parents had already offered to let me stay at their place while I recovered. They had a spare room, no stairs, and the kind of people who stocked soup and crackers like it was their job. They didn't ask for anything in return, just told me to focus on healing. Inpatient PT started in week 2. The first time they tried getting me upright with a walker, I nearly collapsed. My left leg couldn't take my weight and my back screamed like it was about to snap again. The therapist kept saying things like, "You're making progress," even though all I managed was standing for 30 seconds before sweating like I ran a marathon. No calls from my parents, no visits. Matthias didn't text either, not once. The only people showing up were Jackson, his girlfriend Riley sometimes, and 2 of my college friends who brought bad vending machine coffee and tried to keep things light. We played dumb mobile games on my phone between PT sessions. They made the time pass. My parents finally showed up in week 3. I didn't even recognize them at first. My mom had on this bright floral dress like she came from some garden party. My dad carried grocery store flowers wrapped in crinkly plastic. Elliot, mom said like she was announcing me to someone. I was propped up in bed wearing the brace they strapped around my torso to keep my spine from moving too much. My leg had metal rods, fresh scars running down the side. You look okay, Dad said finally. I didn't answer right away. They put the flowers on the little table by my bed. My mom sat, smoothed her dress, then said, "You know, this whole thing really took the focus off Matthias's wedding. I thought I misheard." "Excuse me," I said. She sighed like I was being difficult. "People were confused, Elliot. Some relatives asked why you weren't there. It made things awkward. You could have told people you were fine so they didn't worry." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It never came. Dad cleared his throat. "Your brother felt like the accident overshadowed the day a little. Obviously, we're glad you're okay, but it was hard for him too." I looked down at my brace because looking at them made me feel like I was losing my mind. "Hard for him," I repeated. "I fell 3 stories and broke my spine. Sorry that ruined the party." Neither of them said anything. When they left, they told me to keep them updated, like I was sending postcards from vacation instead of sitting in a hospital bed, learning to walk again. That night, Jackson came by with his mom. She brought homemade soup that didn't taste like cardboard. I told them about the visit. Jackson swore under his breath again. His mom shook her head, muttering something about people having messed up priorities. Over the next week, the physical therapy got harder. Longer sessions, less help from the staff, so I had to rely on my arms and the walker more. Every step felt like someone was jamming a knife into my lower back, but I kept doing it. Matthias finally called once, not to ask how I was doing. He called to say he didn't want drama and hoped I understood why things happened the way they did. I told him I broke my spine, not a piñata. He said I was being intense. When I was finally cleared to leave the hospital, my parents didn't offer to take me in. Didn't even ask. Jackson's parents showed up with their SUV, loaded my bag, and drove me to their place like it was the most normal thing in the world. They set me up in their guest room with a recliner, a pile of pillows, and the Wi-Fi password taped to the wall. My mom texted later that night, "Glad you're out. Keep us posted." I stared at it for a long time before putting the phone face down because at that point there wasn't anything left to say. The first week at Jackson's parents' place was slow. Physical therapy 3 times a week. Short walks from the bedroom to the living room with a cane. A list of exercises taped to the wall next to the recliner. Jackson's mom cooked like she was training for a competition, and his dad kept making bad jokes to keep things from feeling heavy. Meanwhile, I started getting bills from the hospital. The insurance covered some of it, but there were still deductibles, follow-up appointments, medication, and therapy sessions stacking up. I called my parents to talk about it because I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd help. They didn't answer the first few times. When my mom finally picked up, I explained the situation, listed the costs, told her it was tight since I couldn't work yet. She was quiet for a second, then said, "We can't right now. We already gave Matthias some money for the honeymoon, and we still need to help them with the house fund." I thought I misheard the honeymoon. "Well, yes," she said, "they just got married. They need support starting their life." "You're an adult, Elliot. We can't fund everything." I was sitting there with a brace on my back, metal rods in my leg, pain meds lined up on the table like candy, and they couldn't help because they were paying for Matthias to sit on a beach drinking overpriced smoothies. I told her never mind and hung up. A few days later, they came to visit for the first time since I left the hospital. Walked right into Jackson's parents' living room like they owned the place. My mom started with, "Oh, this is cozy," like we were giving them a tour of an Airbnb instead of me recovering in someone else's house because my own parents couldn't be bothered. Matthias wasn't with them. He was posting honeymoon pictures online, sunset dinners, boat rides, the works. My dad asked how physical therapy was going. I said fine. He nodded like he was checking a box. Then my mom said, "We've been hearing things from some relatives. They think we ignored you during the wedding." We told them that wasn't true, of course. I looked at her. It was true. It was. She frowned like I just insulted her. "Elliot, it was Matthias's wedding. People don't understand how much stress we were under. We couldn't be everywhere at once. You didn't show up at all," I said flatly. Dad shifted in his seat. "You're making this sound worse than it was," Dad said. "I was making it sound worse than it was. That I should have played it down for the relatives." I pointed at the brace. "Yeah, I was doing great." They didn't like my tone. Mom said I was being dramatic, that accidents happen, but weddings are once in a lifetime. I asked her if she thought spines healed in a week. She changed the subject. After they left, Jackson walked in from the kitchen with a glass of water and asked how it went. I told him they wanted me to stop making them look bad. Unbelievable, he muttered. I started getting messages from cousins after that. Apparently my parents were telling everyone I was staying with friends because I needed space after the accident, not because they basically abandoned me in the hospital. One aunt called and asked why I didn't come to the wedding at all. I told her I was in surgery while they were cutting the cake. She went silent, then said, "My parents told a completely different story." Of course they did. Matthias finally called after he got back from the honeymoon. "No, how are you?" "No, sorry about the hospital." He started with, "Mom said you've been telling people we ignored you. That's not fair." "Not fair?" I said. "You knew I was in the ICU and didn't even text." "I didn't want drama at the wedding," he said like he was the victim. "I broke my spine, Matthias. Sorry if that clashed with your playlist." He told me I was bitter. I told him he was selfish. That was our whole conversation. By the end of that month, collections were calling about one of the surgery bills, because the hospital, the surgeon, and anesthesia all bill separately. My parents still didn't offer to help. They did, however, post pictures from a family barbecue I wasn't invited to. Big smiles, matching shirts, captions about family means everything. I stopped checking their pages after that. What they didn't realize was some of the relatives were starting to ask questions on their own. And I wasn't lying to anyone. I just told the truth and people didn't like what they heard. The word traveled fast once my cousin started asking questions. I didn't go around starting conversations about it, but when someone called and asked where I'd been the past few months, I told them straight. The accident, the hospital, the wedding, the whole thing. No exaggerations, no yelling, just facts. Some of them didn't believe me at first. My parents had been spinning the story that I skipped the wedding because I was working too much and then needed space after some argument that never even happened. The moment I told my side, you could hear the shock in their voices. But I didn't have time to worry about what the extended family thought. The bills were stacking up. One afternoon, sitting at the kitchen table in Jackson's parents' house, I opened another envelope marked urgent. "Final notice," I read out loud, holding it up for Jackson. He was leaning against the counter, arms crossed. "That the surgery bill?" "Yeah," I said. "Insurance covered most, but there's still $5,000 left on this one alone. Physical therapy is another too. Meds keep adding up too." I laughed without humor. "Guess Mom and Dad are busy paying for Matthias's infinity pool or whatever." Jackson frowned. "They're really not helping at all." "They said they already gave Matthias money for the honeymoon and house fund," I said, sliding the paper across the table. "So no, apparently me learning to walk again isn't in the budget." He looked at the bill, then at me. "Don't stress it right now. Kind of hard not to," I said. He didn't answer, just picked up the envelope and walked out of the room. That night, Jackson's parents sat down with me after dinner. His dad had the bill in his hand. "We're going to cover this," he said simply. I froze. "No, I can't. You can," his mom interrupted, sliding a check across the table. "It's a loan. When you're back on your feet, you pay us back. Until then, focus on getting better." I didn't even know what to say. These weren't people swimming in money. They just cared enough to help when my own family didn't. "You sure about this?" I asked finally. His dad shrugged. "It's what family does." That hit harder than I expected. Over the next few weeks, the calls from collections stopped. The hospital confirmed the balance was paid. Jackson's parents never brought it up again. Meanwhile, Jackson became my unofficial physical therapist when the real ones weren't around. He drove me to appointments, sat in the waiting room scrolling on his phone, then walked me back to the car like I was 80 years old. At home, he made me do the boring exercises the PT gave me, leg lifts, stretches, balancing stuff. If I complained, he threw a pillow at me and told me to shut up. We watched a lot of late-night TV those weeks. Some nights we didn't talk much. Others, we ended up laughing about dumb high school memories until my ribs hurt. It wasn't just the help with the bills. It was the way his family made space for me. It wasn't a favor, like I belonged there. Matthias texted once during this time. "Heard you got the hospital paid off. Guess it wasn't that bad after all." I didn't answer because how do you even respond to something like that? As my walking improved, I started doing remote work again. Nothing crazy, data entry, freelance writing gigs, whatever I could do from the recliner with my laptop propped on pillows. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to cover my phone bill, meds, and some groceries, so I wasn't draining Jackson's parents completely. I set up a payment plan with them for the hospital loan, even though they told me not to rush. His mom said, "We're not worried about it, Elliot," but I was. I didn't want to be someone's permanent charity case. Meanwhile, the family drama kept brewing in the background.
One cousin messaged me saying,
My mom told everyone I refused visitors in the hospital because I was embarrassed about the accident. I told him the truth. Nobody showed up until 3 weeks later, and when they did, they complained about the wedding. Next thing I knew, my aunt called demanding to know why my parents lied. I told her to ask them. One Saturday, Jackson and I were sitting on the porch when he said, "You realize your parents are digging their own grave here, right? They keep lying. People keep finding out. It's on them." I nodded. "Yeah, but they'll blame me when everyone stops taking their side." "Let them," he said. "People see what's real." Eventually, by the end of that month, I was taking short indoor walks without the cane. Still slow and stiff, but moving. Jackson filmed it on his phone, cheering like I just won a marathon. I sent the video to my parents. No response. By the time summer rolled around, the truth had legs of its own. I didn't push it. I didn't post anything online or start any arguments. But every time someone called or messaged asking where I'd been the last few family events, I told them the same thing. The accident happened 2 days before the wedding. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. No one showed up until after it was over, and when they did, they blamed me for making it awkward. That was it. No insults, no drama, just the facts. And people didn't like what they heard. My cousin Viola was the first to call my parents out. She told me later she asked my mom why nobody knew about the accident. Apparently, my mom said I didn't want anyone to fuss and that I asked for privacy. Viola called BS on the spot. She'd seen the hospital bracelets when she visited me. She knew I couldn't even walk. After that, the calls started piling up. Aunts, uncles, even some family friends. They wanted to hear my side. So I gave it to them. Straightforward. No anger in my voice. The more people heard, the more cracks started showing in my parents' story. There was this annual family barbecue that July. Big deal for my parents. They hosted, loved being the center of attention, pictures on Facebook, long captions about family traditions. But this year, half the usual crowd didn't show. I wasn't invited, obviously, but Viola sent me a photo someone posted. My parents sitting at a picnic table with empty chairs around them. Matthias there too, looking annoyed. Later that night, he texted me. "You're turning people against us. You need to stop." I stared at the message for a while before replying. I just answered questions. Not my fault the truth doesn't make you look good. He didn't respond after that. A week later, Matthias's wife Jenny reached out. Said she wanted to meet for coffee. She showed up looking tired, like someone who hadn't slept enough lately. After some small talk, she finally said, "Matthias told me about the accident months later. He made it sound like you were fine the whole time." I told her what really happened. The hospital, the voicemail about the wedding being more important, the bills Jackson's family covered because my own parents refused. Jenny just stared at her cup, shaking her head. "I wish I'd known," she said finally. "I would have come to see you. I thought you didn't want visitors." "That's what they told people," I said. She looked angry, but not at me. One afternoon, my parents came to Jackson's house unannounced. Jackson's dad answered the door while I was doing my PT exercises in the living room. "We need to talk to Elliot," my mom said, like it was urgent. I told them we could meet at the coffee shop down the street instead. No way was I letting them start something in front of Jackson's parents after everything they'd done for me. We met the next day.
They sat across from me, both looking serious. My dad started.
"You've been telling people things that make us look bad." I leaned back in my chair. I told them what happened. That's all. Mom jumped in. "You're twisting it, making it sound like we abandoned you. You did abandon me," I said. Calm, even voice, no yelling. "One surgery, I couldn't walk, and you didn't show up because it might ruin the wedding." They didn't like that. My dad said I was ungrateful. My mom said family shouldn't air private matters. "Then maybe you should have acted like family in the first place," I said. Conversation over. Over the next month, things got quiet. My parents stopped calling. Matthias didn't text, but the relatives kept reaching out. Viola told me several of them confronted my parents about the lies. A few even told Matthias to his face that he should have been at the hospital instead of smiling for photos. One uncle apparently canceled on my parents for Thanksgiving, saying he didn't feel right celebrating family with people who don't act like family. I didn't ask for any of this, it just happened. One evening, sitting on the porch with Jackson, I told him about the barbecue, the coffee meeting with Jenny, the relatives pulling away. He nodded slowly. That's what happens when you keep lying. Eventually, people notice the smoke. I told him I didn't even want revenge. I just wanted to be left alone. Doesn't matter, he said. They built this mess. Now they get to live in it. Late August, Matthias finally texted. Can we talk? We met at a diner off the highway. He walked in wearing a polo shirt like he came straight from golf or something, not looking at me until he sat down. No hello. No how are you? You happy now? He started loud enough that the waitress looked over. Family won't stop calling me. People skipped the barbecue. You made us look like monsters. I stayed calm. I didn't make you look like anything. I told them what happened. He leaned forward, voice sharp. No, you spun it so everyone thinks we abandoned you. Like we didn't have a wedding to run. Like we weren't under pressure too. You did abandon me, I said. The surgery. ICU alone. He shook his head like I was the unreasonable one. You always do this. Play the victim. Like the whole world's against you. You could have told people you were fine, but no, you let them think we're heartless. I laughed once. You want me to send a thank you card for ignoring me? Maybe frame the voicemail where Mom said the wedding was more important. His face tightened. You know what your problem is? You can't stand that the spotlight wasn't on you. It killed you that my wedding mattered more than your accident. Actually made me blink. You think I fell off scaffolding for attention? Seriously? He didn't back down. Wouldn't be the first time you made things harder for everyone else. I stared at him. I was fighting to walk again while you were on a beach drinking cocktails. Jackson's parents paid my hospital bills because our own parents wouldn't. And you're mad because people finally saw through the perfect little image you built. That's what this is about. He leaned back, smirking like he won something. People wouldn't even know if you kept your mouth shut. Right, I said, because the truth only counts if it makes you look good. Families stick together, he snapped. Families show up, I shot back. Families don't skip the hospital because it clashes with the cake-cutting schedule. His voice rose. You could have waited. You didn't have to tell everyone. I laughed again, this time shaking my head. Sorry my accident wasn't convenient for you, Matthias. Next time I'll check your calendar before I break my spine. He slammed his hand on the table. Silverware rattled. You ruined everything. The wedding, the family events, Mom and Dad's reputation. You ruined it, I said, cutting him off. All I did was stop covering for you. He opened his mouth, ready to fire back, but nothing came out. For a second, he just sat there, jaw tight, like it finally hit him. There was no spin left to hide behind. I dropped some cash on the table for my coffee and stood up. You wanted the crown, Matthias. Congrats, but don't get mad at me because it's falling apart now. I left him sitting there red-faced in the middle of the diner, people staring from nearby tables. In early December, Jenny texted me. We separated for a bit, she wrote. Matthias is staying at his friend's place. I didn't ask for details. None of my business, but later, Viola said Jenny told a few people she was tired of Matthias playing the victim. Tired of him blaming everyone else when the truth caught up. I believed it. That diner conversation showed me all I needed to know about my brother's talent for dodging responsibility. Meanwhile, my life moved on. I kept working remote gigs while finishing physical therapy. By February, I was fully off the cane outdoors. Still stiff sometimes, but nothing like before. Jackson's parents refused every time I tried to start paying them back for the hospital loan. You need time, his dad said. Money can wait, but I set the money aside anyway, month after month building it up until I could hand them the full amount. When I finally gave them the check in March, his mom hugged me like I'd just come home from war. They didn't make me feel like charity. They made me feel like family. Spring came, and with it came more distance between me and my parents. They tried calling a few times, mostly to talk about how the family felt divided lately. My dad said it like some mysterious outside force had caused it, not their own choices. I told him I wasn't interested in pretending things were fine. If they wanted a relationship, it had to start with owning up to what happened. He said I was being dramatic. I said then we had nothing to talk about. By May, Matthias reached out again, this time in person. He showed up at the park where I was walking laps for exercise. No hello, no small talk, just straight into it. You told people about Jenny leaving? He snapped. I raised an eyebrow. No, Viola mentioned it. Guess word got around.
You enjoy this, don't you?
His voice was bitter. Everyone treating me like the bad guy while you sit back looking innocent. I kept my hands in my jacket pockets. You made yourself the bad guy, Matthias. I didn't tell you to ignore me in the hospital.
I didn't tell you to lie to the family. That was all you.
He laughed without humor. You think you're so perfect now? Because people feel sorry for you. Nobody feels sorry for me, I said evenly. They just finally see you for who you are. He didn't like that. One accident, and you act like you're the hero of the story. I looked at him for a long second. No hero here, just someone who stopped covering for you. For once, he didn't have a comeback. He stood there jaw tight, then turned and walked off without another word. 2 weeks later, Jenny filed for divorce. Viola told me apparently Jenny said she was tired of his selfishness, tired of the Golden Boy Act, tired of carrying the marriage while he played victim about the family drama he caused. Matthias moved back in with my parents after that. The last time I saw them all together was at a cousin's birthday the next July. I showed up because Viola invited me directly. My parents tried small talk, asking about work, about therapy, about whether I was feeling better these days. I gave short answers and kept eating my cake. Matthias didn't say anything to me at all. Just sat there looking like someone who'd watched his kingdom crumble one brick at a time. I left early, walking out into the warm evening air. My legs felt steady, my back didn't ache as much anymore. On the way home, I passed a construction site. New scaffolding, bright warning signs, workers in harnesses double-checking bolts before climbing. I stopped for a second watching them work. Then I kept walking because that part of my life was over. The accident, the lies, the drama, none of it was mine to carry anymore. I had my health back. I had people who showed up when it mattered. The rest could fall apart without me, and it did.